now we're going to move on to talking about who the favourites are, because we've changed a lot on this. Nick has been on Belgium since day one. Andy was with England. I said Portugal and then flip-flopped to Belgium a little bit. So, Andy Edwards, are you changing your mind here from England, or are you fully on the bandwagon for the Three Lions to win this thing?
No, I'm not changing, my opinion on England. If anything, I think I feel stronger about it, and it's not even about the path that they have to the final. That wasn't the best Germany team that we've ever seen. It wasn't even anything close to the best Germany team that we've ever seen. But it was still a formidable squad. It was still a team. I thought Germany played quite well, actually, in terms of who had more of the kind of meaningful possession, who looked a little bit more dangerous. The real difference in that game in the last 16 was England had, would you say, 2 chances, maybe 3 chances in that game? They put them both away. Germany had a couple chances. Thomas Müller pulled it. I mean, Thomas Müller, of all German players, just missed the mark completely one-on-one with the goalkeeper. So, that to me tells me that this England team knows exactly who they are, and the tactics that Southgate has gone with for this tournament, he's gotten it spot on. And I know the calls are for, well, get Jack Grealish into the lineup. Look how good he was for 30 minutes when he came on. Imagine if they had him from the start. One, he wouldn't be doing that from the start. He wouldn't be that effective against defenders and opposing midfielders who haven't been running for 60 minutes while he sits on the very cushy seats there at Wembley. But the other thing is, you would lose all of the defensive solidity that you've got there in the midfield. Declan Rice, Calvin Phillips, I think we were all pretty much in complete agreement around the room here before the tournament. That should be the central midfield duo at the base behind whatever the front four is going to be. And those two, they've had some ropey moments, I guess, at times, but by and large, they have just been absolutely fantastic. They've been a rock there at the base of midfield, and they were the reason, I think, that England were able to get by for a couple games without Harry Maguire, and even as Maguire is still getting back up to fitness, still getting up to sharpness.
Yeah, those two have been great, and considering it's their first major tournament as well for both of those players, still fairly young, incredible. And I have to say, being at Wembley for the group stage games in the last 16 game against Germany, if Grealish isn't on the pitch, he is the first player that England's fans are chanting. The whole stadium is, chanting for Super Jack to come on. And I'm in agreement with you, Andy, because it's a different game today. If he starts, he doesn't have those maybe tired legs of the German defense he can run at and turn and twist pass. And he is the perfect sub to bring on in these situations in a tournament where, after 65, 70 minutes, if it's level or England are 1-0 up, he can finish teams off. He can create something just like he did for Harry Kane. And he was involved in Raheem Sterling's goal as well. So I think England thus far have got their tactics absolutely spot on when it comes to formations, team selections. And Germany weren't great. Croatia weren't great, but they're still quality opposition. They've beaten both of them, beaten the Czech Republic, who have got to the quarterfinals. So, England's stock has definitely risen throughout the tournament. Nick, Belgium, have they gone up in your estimations, or are they kind of where you thought they would be?
I think they're where I thought they would be. And what's maybe keeping me from saying they've gone up at all is simply knowing the task that's ahead of them. And that's why I get tempted to look at maybe even 3 of the 4 teams at the bottom, just because I don't think England's had a stinker yet. In every tournament, you have a team that you have a game where your nation doesn't play at its best. And honestly, after watching Ukraine, Sweden, I do have a thought in my head that this team can go punch anybody at any time, that they have those pieces that can just do it. Yarmolenko has terrific power and vision and all that. And we've seen with whether it's at Dortmund or West Ham or wherever that he can do these things. So I tend to think my opinion of England has risen to the role of almost co-favorites. I really do think they're going to come out of the bottom half, and Belgium, Italy is going to be a slugfest. I think Spain is the next game. Whoever they play there, that's a slugfest. So I think Andy and I we maybe traded some texts about this earlier. That's asking an awful lot out of a team to, let's say you're Belgium, to beat Italy, Spain, and England in a span of 9 days.
If they win it, they will have earned it. Absolutely.
Portugal before that as well. And the last thing, I mean, they've done it the hard way, and fair play to them. When it comes to Ukraine, I agree with you on that, because if you look at some of Yarmolenko, Malinovsky, Yaremchuk. I mean, they have some very talented players, and if they sit back defensively and deep and they're going to be tired after going to extra time against Sweden, they are capable of hitting teams on the counter or having that individual bit of quality where Yarmolenko just bends one in from 35 yards out. And we've seen that England against Scotland struggled to score and have struggled for goals generally in this tournament. So that's going to be an interesting battle. I think England, yes, I think you're right. They still have one game where they will not play well in this tournament. Again, I'm talking them out of winning this. I'm looking at Belgium, Italy as whoever wins that game, I think will reach the final. I think Spain are good, but have some flaws, especially defensively. We've seen pop up in recent games. Andy, is there anybody else that you really think Denmark can get to the final? I mean, technically they could, right? The way they're playing, they have momentum.
Denmark going to the semifinal, period, under any circumstances, is an awesome story at a major tournament, right? Yeah. Denmark going to the semifinals of a major tournament after what happened 43 minutes into their first game is something that you probably make a movie about one day. It is that kind of a story and an accomplishment from those players. I think a little bit of the credit that is due to some of those Danish players is probably getting lost in the Christian Eriksen storyline and the narrative. And just by going back to that again and again and saying, well, they're doing it for Christian Eriksen. They're doing it for Christian Eriksen. It's a really, really good team of a lot of players that plays for some really big clubs around Europe, and a lot of players that are going to play for even bigger clubs in Europe when the new season starts, I think, after what they've done at this tournament. So they're a very, very talented team. I don't think they get to the final, though. I look at England and I see that entire side of the bracket. It just belongs to them. The fact that they only have to go to Rome, then they're right back to Wembley to get to the final. The only question I have about England, and I won't spend a lot of time on it, I just don't know if they're ever going to get anything out of Kane at center forward. I know he scored against Germany. It was a late goal. It was masterfully set up by basically everybody else in the team. But when he's playing up there by himself up top, and against two slow center backs like Germany had, and he's just not touching the ball, he's just not able to outrun two of the slowest center backs in the world to get in behind, I get a little bit worried because they don't have the personnel on the wings that can make those runs in behind to score goals the way that he had at Tottenham when he was so successful this season. He's not dropping in his...
They just don't play them.
Well, but that's the same thing, isn't it? Because if they're not playing them, then they don't have them. If they're not on the field, right. it doesn't matter. So the tactics are not set up to maximize Kane, I guess, is the point that I'm making. And so I just worry that at some point in this tournament that if they find themselves 0-0, 89 minutes in, and they need something, are they going to actually be able to count on Kane for that? I don't know the way that they're set up that it's going to work for him.
I don't know, though. I feel like he's an easy target. I feel like he, as soon as he doesn't score a few goals in a few games running, it's, Kane's sluggish. He doesn't look fit. And I've watched him closely. He's still making the same kind of runs. He still looks, the same effort-wise, and he's leading the line. You're right, though. It's different because he has a lot of defenders around. A lot of the teams playing against England aren't gung-ho. They're sitting back. They're trying to hit England on the counter. And it's difficult for him. But I think Raheem Sterling's obviously taking the headlines, and that's what's led England to this point. But when I do look at other nations, I just struggle to see past Belgium, if I'm honest. And that's my next question for you guys. Who do you want the final to be, and who do you think it will be? Nick, I mean, that's two great questions there. What are you looking for and hoping for the final? Predict what's going to happen.
I'd like to see Belgium versus England, if only for some of the Premier League storylines. I think that's what we're going. I'm sorry, I think that's what we're going to see. I kind of want to see that as well, but I'm actually going to swap it out for Spain versus England. And the reason I want to see that is because I think Spain is setting up as a team that may be a World Cup threat, and I'd like to see them get that tournament experience to really threaten that. Players like Rodri, Thiago, Coca, their whole midfield comes out of a very organized super teams, and I think they might be built to just kind of sneaky win this, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's true. Andy, do you see Spain or Switzerland, Italy, one of those teams winning it on that side of the bracket?
Yeah, I think what it will be and what I want it to be is the same thing. I think it's Italy, England, and it works, right? Maybe that'll be the hashtag for the game. I think it's those two in the final, and I think it's gonna be hilarious, by the way, leading up to it, because England are now the kind of defensive team, and Italy are the team that want to kind of get after you a little bit. And so the roles just means something about that to me is just so perfect and poetic that we need to see that in a final for, for European, champion status on the line.
Yeah, that would be pretty incredible. I picked Belgium, England as the final, believe it or not, when I made my predictions ahead of the round of 16 starting, and I had Belgium beating England in the final, which I could definitely see happening, to be honest, when the final's at Wembley and at home for England and everyone's getting way too excited. But yeah, there's so many different permutations. I think when you look at this, the quarterfinals, Belgium, Italy, Switzerland, Spain, Ukraine, England, Czech Republic, Denmark, so much could happen. But the favourites undeniably are Belgium and England on either side of the bracket. And then you'd probably look at Denmark and probably Spain as the next two teams that you'd say could have a good run to the final there. And obviously Italy as well. They get past Belgium, and I think they're in a really good position to get to the final. But over on Pro Soccer Talk at NBCSports.com, we'll keep you updated with the rest of Euro 2020. Who's actually going to win it? Who are the favourites? The latest news and analysis. We'll be chopping and changing our minds, I'm sure, after the quarterfinals, gents, because, Andy's fully on. He's got his waistcoat ready for the Gareth Southgate appreciation evening we're going to have. And yeah, England and Belgium look very, very good, and they are the favourites on either side of the bracket heading into the quarterfinal round.